And with that, the 2023-24 season of football comes to an end. Good night. So, having said that, there is one question that's on everyone's mind. Who is going to win the Ballon d'Or? Or actually, who deserves to win it? Now, I'll put this up on the screen. These are the end of season power rankings for the Ballon d'Or according to goal. As you can see, we got Nico Williams, Phil Foden, Harry Kane, Mbappe, Toni Kroos, and in the top 5 we have Lautaro, Carvajal, Bellingham, Vini, and the favorite to win the Ballon d'Or is Rodri. And all I can say is that this list is complete horse shit. Nico Williams in the top 20, Carvajal being 4th, Florian Wirtz not even cracking top 10. It seems like these days, everyone has a completely different and completely wrong criteria for the Ballon d'Or, and no one actually knows who the real contenders are. There's a few dons on Twitter who are pushing the agenda that Carvajal should win it because he won the Champions League, La Liga, and Euros. Okay then, by that logic, Julian Alvarez should have won last year because he won the treble and the World Cup. By that logic, Jorginho should have won in 2021 because he won the Champions League, Euros, and by some godforsaken miracle, the UEFA Player of the Year. By that logic, Rafael Varane should have won it in 2018 because he won the World Cup and the Champions League. You see how it doesn't really make sense? So you're probably wondering, oh Justinho, you seem you're acting all high and mighty and acting like you know ball. Well actually, I do. Cause today I've prepared a 30-man list of what I think should be the final Ballon d'Or ranking with little to no bias. I was watching this video the other day about who deserved to win the 2023 Ballon d'Or. Messi or Haaland. Go check it out if you haven't already. This guy, Football Realm, says that according to France Football, the criteria for the Ballon d'Or is individual performance, collective achievements, player class, player career, records broken, big game performances, and importance to the team. But we'll be making some changes because some of the criteria here is a bit unfair. First of all, we'll be removing player career because a player's career should be completely irrelevant to a seasonal award. We'll be grouping records broken with accolades, and apparently France Football means fair play by player class. But I think that's also relevant. Just because a player is a huge house doesn't take away from their greatness. I mean, just look at these guys. So we'll be rebranding player class to player talent, or as you TikTok merchants like to call, the eye test. So that's the final list. Individual performance, accolades, player talent, big game performances. So how exactly can we turn something like this to being unbiased? Well, here's my interpretation of the criteria. Before we start the vid, I got a list of 64 or 65 footballers to choose for a 30-man rank list. The list consists of Alisson, Araujo, Bellingham, Bernardo, Boniface, Saka, Carvajal, Christian Romero, Darwin Núñez, Frankie de Jong, Dembele, Ruben Dias, DeMarco, Donnarumma, Endo, Fabian Ruiz, Florian Wirtz, Phil Foden, Frimpong, Gabriel, Cody Gakpo, Antoine Griezmann, Ronaldo, Guirassy, Haaland, Hummels, Julian Brandt, Kane, Kevin De Bruyne, Kimmich, Toni Kroos, Lamine Yamal, Lautaro, Lewandowski, Luis Diaz, Andre Lunin, McAllister, Mbappe, Messi, Musiala, Nico Williams, Odegaard, Ollie Watkins, Openda, Palmer, Bruno Fernandes, Declan Rice, Rodrigo, Rudiger, Salah, Saliba, Sancho, Sané, Son, Leo Hernandez, Trent, Valverde, Vini, Van Dijk, Xavi Simons, Xhaka, Jan Sommer. Holy fuck. For individual performance, we'll be looking at stats. And no, we not casuals over here. Different stats for different archetypes. What do I mean by that? Well, take Mo Salah and Cole Palmer for example. Both are right wingers, but you can't really use GA to compare them. Mo Salah is an inside forward, while Cole Palmer is a wide attacking midfielder. In Klopp's Liverpool, the number 9 becomes a cam, and the main strikers are usually the wingers. We saw this when Mo, Sadio, and Firmino were terrorizing Europe. So, obviously he's more inclined to have more GA than Pop. Well, I guess that shows that Mo Salah is actually a So back to what I was saying, yeah. We'll be looking at specific stats for specific archetypes. But how can we compare two players with completely different archetypes? Well, that's where I like to thank Football Reference, the sponsors of today's video. Man, who am I kidding? I ain't getting no bread. Yeah, so Football Reference, or FBref as we'll refer to it, has this feature where you can see the percentile that a player is in for a specific stat relative to his position. It's kind of like assigning school grades to them, and I'm the teacher. Like for example, Vini Jr. is a great dribbler and is averaging a lot of dribbles per game. Therefore, he's in the 99th percentile of dribbles made per game relative to all wingers and attacking midfielders in Europe. So for individual performance, we'll be assigning archetypes to each player, and assigning and categorizing stats for each archetype by primary, secondary, and tertiary stats, taking the average of their club and international percentile for each stat, and computing those stats to achieve a final score. Okay, so I don't think I explained that really well, so I'll show you an example. So let's take Lamine Yamal and Cole Palmer. So for Lamine Yamal, I have him classified under the inverted winger archetype. The primary stats are GA and take-ons, and the secondary stats are carries, expected assists, and key passes. Cole Palmer, I have him under the wide attacking midfielder archetype. His primary stats are GA, expected assists, and carries. His secondary stats are key passes, and tertiary stats are take-ons. So basically what we do is we use the thing I was talking about for FVRF, the whole percentile shit. So Lamine Yamal played in both the regular season and the Euros. Palmer did play in the Euros, but since he didn't play that much, his stats didn't register in FVRF, so we'll just give him a -5 deduction. For Yamal, he was in the 40th percentile of GA during the regular season and the 93rd in the Euros, so we take the average of that, and then we use that as a percentile for GA. So for Lamine Yamal, he's in the 63rd.5 percentile of GA, the 89th percentile of expected assists, the 76th percentile of take-ons, the 70.5th percentile of key passes, and the 83rd percentile of dribbles made. Cole Palmer, on the other hand, is in the 99th percentile of GA, the 90th percentile of expected assists, the 59th percentile of take-ons, the 86th percentile of key passes, and the 66th percentile of carries. So then we take the average of the stats, but as I mentioned earlier, the primary stats are weighed more heavily than like the tertiary and secondary stats. You know how that goes. So we take the average of those stats with the recording weights, and we get that Cole Palmer has an average of 79.52, and Lamine Yamal has an average of 74.5. So that's essentially what I did for all these players. So what do the results look like? Well, for the forwards, I was actually shocked that Phil Foden, the Premier League MVP, was at the bottom of the list with a score of 48%. But then I realized, it's cause he had a shit Euros. My guy really went 007, got more kids than GA face at. 27th and 26th are Sancho and Sané. Saka is 22nd with a score of 63. Bellingham is 21st with a score of 64. Lautaro, another Ballon d'Or candidate, is 28th with a score of 65. And surprisingly, finishing ahead of these lot is Darwin Núñez. Harry Kane finds himself at 15th with a score of 70%. 2 spots ahead of him is Lamine Yamal, followed by Dembele, then Messi. Cole Palmer is at 8th, scoring 79%. Holland is at 6th, scoring 81.4%. 5th is Son Heung-min. 4th is Nico Williams. 3rd is Mbappe. And 1st and 2nd are the only 2 players to have scored above 90%, Guirassy and Vini Jr. Moving on to the midfielders, at the bottom of the list is Endo, who I thought had a pretty good year at Liverpool, being a solid option as a 6. Not incredible, but reliable. Especially in that match against City, where he made Rodri and De Bruyne his bitch. And as you go up the list, there's nothing really surprising. Musiala at 10th is a bit shocking, as he had an incredible Euro campaign, but his season with Bayern brought him down to a score of 70%. We have Odegaard at 8th, who is a nominee for Premier League MVP, and was one of the best midfielders in the world at a point of the season. Surprising to find McAllister and Bruno Fernandes this high up on the list, and the top 4 are the usual suspects: Wirtz, Rodri, De Bruyne, and Kroos. Kroos is the other footballer, aside from Vini and Guirassy, that has a score in the 90s. There's nothing really much to be said about the defenders, except that Christian Romero ended up being the highest scoring center back, with a score of 77%. For fullbacks, this is the list. You may notice that Kimmich is also on this list, and the midfielders. That's because he played as a midfielder for Bayern, but as a right back for Germany. So his regular season stats are used in the midfielder portion, and his Euro stats are used for the fullbacks. The average of his ranks will be used as the final ranking for individual performance. And this is the final ranking for goalkeepers. Now we got big game rankings, where, hear me out, SofaScore. Yeah, I know, you lot are all like, I watch football with my eyes. Watch football with your eyes, bruv. Well, we don't trust your eyes. Also, remember that Rodri vid I made a while back? You guys are still skeptical. I took the SofaScore rating out of all potential Ballon d'Or candidates, and I took the average of the players' ratings in big games. Yeah, that part where I was talking about the big game ratings, this is why I did that. We'll be looking at their average rating in the league, European competitions, and international competitions. For the league ratings, we'll only be looking at games against big teams. So for the Prem, that includes City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Villa, Tottenham, and Chelsea. In La Liga, it's matches against Barca, Madrid, Atleti, and Girona. In Serie A, it's matches against Inter, AC Milan, Juve, Lazio, Roma, and Atlanta. In the Bundesliga, it's matches against Bayern, Leverkusen, Dortmund, Leipzig, and Stuttgart. And in Liga 1, it's matches against PSG, Monaco, and Lille. In the European competitions, the weight of each match compounds with each round. So round of 16 matches get 1x weight, quarterfinals get 2x weight, semis get 3x weight, and finals get 6x weight, as it's only one match compared to the 2 legs of the other rounds. Players in the Europa League will get deducted 0.3 points off their final European average. Those in Conference League will get 0.5 points off their final European average. The international competitions are basically the same as the European competitions, except it also includes the group stages. Players that were in AFCON and the AFC Cup get a 0.3 deduction on the final average rating. Finally, players that didn't play in Europe this season get a 0.3 point deduction. However, there is one player whose rating was absurdly high amongst the rest, but that's mainly because he missed a third of the season due to injury. World-class player though, but we'll get to him soon. At the bottom of the list, as the biggest big game ghoster, is surprisingly the guy who finished second in the European Golden Shoe, Serhou Guirassy. Just above him is his African brother Boniface, who despite getting shots for African Player of the Year, didn't start in many of the big game matches. Ballon d'Or contender Erling Haaland found himself at 58. So why is he getting top 10 shouts? Just above him is my sunshine Darwizi. Nico Williams has been balling out for Spain, but his performance for Bilbao got him ranked 55th. Ice Cold Palmer is at 51st. Lautaro Martinez, another guy getting Ballon d'Or shouts, is 32nd. And another Ballon d'Or candidate and so-called best big game player this season, Carvajal, is 28th. Messi is 23rd, Wirtz is 17th, Saka is 16th, and then we get into the top 10. KDB is 10th, Foden is 9th, Mbappe is 8th, Griezmann is 7th, Vini is 6th, Bernardo Silva pretty high up on the list at 5th, but even crazier is Dembele at 4th, number 3 is Rodri, number 2 is Bellingham, and the guy at number 1 has just claimed his UNC status, freshly retired Toni Kroos. In domestic league big games, we find that Jude Bellingham is clear of the rest of his competition with an average rating of 8.3, but we still say that this guy only plays well against Cadiz FC. Just below him is Rodri with a score of 7.9, but people like to think that Rodri wasn't even in the Ballon d'Or conversation before, and that he was just a mid-tier player for Man City. Son surprisingly cracked the top 5, having an average rating of 7.8 in big Premier League games. Moving on to the Champions League, and this is the player I was talking about when I said I had to deduct points, because he missed a chunk of the season. By a mile, number 1 is Kevin De Bruyne with an average rating of 8.65. But that's because he only played like 2 matches in the knockout stage, both of which he excelled in. Following him is Jan Sommer, then Griezmann, Foden, and Kroos. In the international competitions, number 1 is Kimmich, their best right back of the tournament, yet they gave that spot to Kyle Walker, who is 40th. You can see the rest of this list. Why is Dembele 4th? I don't know. I don't know how he's managed to pull that off. I'm just looking at this results and ask myself, have we been corrupted by the media's portrayal of specific players? Like Dembele, for example? He can't score to save his life, they said. But here he is, one of the best big game players in the world. Now, I know I said that this is mainly going to be unbiased, but I mean, the eye test, there really isn't a stat. Just watch the game, but everyone perceives the game differently. So I asked myself, if I was a manager and I wanted a player for a whole season, who would I pick? And I compared player by player, and this is the top 10 I got. Realistically, this would be the true Ballon d'Or ranking if you're only focused on how good a player was that season, regardless of big game performances, accolades, and all of that good stuff. Actually, let me show you the top 30, because we're going to have a 30-man shortlist at the end of this. As you can see here, I have Vini at number 1. I fully believe that just based on the matches that I've watched, Vini is the best player this season. Rodri is a close second though, but Vini just edges him. Pause. I have Florian Wirtz at 3rd ahead of Bellingham. It seems like after the Euros, everyone forgot how good he was at Leverkusen this season, and especially in the Euros. Even though he came off the bench, he showed the world why he should be starting over that racist bum Leroy. But yeah, since this is biased, let me know if I should make any changes to this part. Now the part where everyone is excited for, the accolades portion. The system that I used is a bit complicated, so bear with me. For team accolades, we consider the 4 things: the points they achieved in the domestic league, how well they did in the domestic cup, how well they did in European competitions, and how well they did in international competitions. We would compare two players with each other. Whoever did better in the league got +2, domestic cup is +1, Europe is +2, and international is +2. For individual awards, there's two sides. If you're comparing a striker with striker, then all legit accolades like the Golden Boot or Player of the Season get a +2. A team of the season in the UCL or international competition, or a finished top 3 in the league's Golden Boot, or top 5 in the European Golden Shoe gets a +1. When comparing a striker with a different position, team of the season accolades are ignored, player of the season accolades get a +2, but Golden Boots only get a +1. Let me show you an example. Like Rodri and Lautaro Martinez. Lautaro got 94 points with Inter, and Rodri got 91 points with City. 2-0 Lautaro. Rodri reached the FA Cup finals, but Lautaro reached the Coppa Italia round of 16. 2-1 Lautaro. Rodri reached the Champions League quarterfinals, but Lautaro reached the round of 16. 3-2 Rodri. Both won their international competitions, so it's a tie. For their individual accolades, Rodri won the Euro MVP, but Lautaro didn't win the Copa America MVP. 5-2 Rodri. Lautaro won the Serie A MVP, but Rodri didn't win the Premier League MVP. 5-4 Rodri. Lautaro won the Serie A and Copa America Golden Boot. Normally this would be a +4 against the striker, but since it's against the midfielder, it's +2. 6-5 Lautaro. Lautaro wins. So I did that with every player, but I came across a dilemma. There were so many cases where I had player A is better than player B is better than player C, and player C is better than player A. So I decided to start off with the eye test rankings and compare the players starting from top to bottom. And these were my findings. And then we take the 4 rankings. The stat ranking, the big games ranking, the eye test ranking, and the accolades ranking. So how did I determine the final rankings? Well, here's what I did. First, I organized a list based on their accolades because that's probably the most important stat. And then I compared the players one by one. I look at the rankings they have in each of the 5 categories. Whoever had a higher ranking in a category won that category between the 2 players. And whoever won more categories is higher in the ranking. But if we find a tie, whoever was more important to their team's success moves up. So with that said, this is the top 30 list that I came up with. Number 30 is Bukayo Saka. 29th, Son. 28th, Xavi Simons. 27th, Antoine Griezmann. 26th, Bernardo Silva.
What are you doing, my friend?
25, Frimpong. 24th, Odegaard. 23rd, Fabian Ruiz. 22nd, Rodrigo. 21st, Haaland. 20th, Valverde. 19th, Girassi. 18th, Andre Lunin. 17th, Victor Gyökeres. 16th, Antonio Rudiger. 15th, Lamine Yamal. 14th, 13th, Granit Xhaka. 12th, Ronaldo. 11th, Phil Foden. And then we get to the top 10. At number 10th, Dani Carvajal. 9th is Cole Palmer. 8th, I have Lautaro Martinez. At 7th, I have Harry Kane. At 6th, I have Toni Kroos. 5th, I have Florian Wirtz. 4th, I have Kylian Mbappe. And then we get into the top 3, which is, well, what everyone expected. Rodri, Vini, and Bellingham. And the deserved winner of the 2024 Ballon d'Or, also known, or I should call it, the Schreisty d'Or, is Vinicius Jr. I mean, come on, let's be real. We all know Vini deserved to win it. Rodri, I predicted Rodri to win it. As you can see in the video I made after Spain won the Euros. In that vid, I mentioned, I still think Rodri has a good chance of winning the Ballon d'Or if Spain win the whole thing. And y'all can check the date here. See, look, March 16th. I said it before all of y'all said it. And if you want to know the other rankings, Rodri finished 2nd and Bellingham is 3rd. So, this is my list of what I think the Ballon d'Or ranking should be. I hope you enjoyed me on this journey. And with that said, actually hold on, I'd like to say something. Well, I noticed there's been a huge change in my content. As before, I used to do football-oriented vids. And now, most of my vids are really mainly surrounding anime. Well, let me tell you something. I wanted to make a channel where I was mainly doing anime and football vids. So I was thinking Blue Lock is going to be my main focus because, you know, anime and football. But why am I saying this? This is probably going to be my last footy vid for a while. Like, now I kind of understand where I want to go with this channel, what my audience is going to be. Definitely towards more of the anime side. So, with that said,
Ballin' off the front, niggas like the front. You know I like the front, like I kiss you like a pound of my young niggas like young niggas. I'm a head huncho, and I got no nacho. Eat nigga like taco, nigga don't want no get you in, screw. That 223, that's that